Please turn to page 9. In this chapter, I'm going to show you how you can integrate writing across the curriculum. And we know from research that when you're looking at reading, writing, listening, speaking, and thinking at high levels, that needs to be done throughout the instructional day. As a matter of fact, in the Common Core State Standards, the entire goal of language arts is for students to read, write, listen, speak, and think critically as they are learning in all their content areas. Hence, we need to read and write, listen, speak, and think in language arts, in science, social studies, mathematics, as well as having a writing block standing on its own. This is critical, but how do we do it? So in this chapter, I'm going to show you the components of writing. I'm going to talk about many different activities, which we will address, and I will walk you through in this book. So let's first just identify all of these different activities and skills, put them where they would belong in your instructional day, show you how I'm going to integrate, and then we'll begin our different chapters so you can learn all of these different methods to have your students reach the standards. On page 9 and 10, we're going to look at language arts, science social studies, your writing block, and then I also have out spelling and grammar time, as well as teacher write and editing. These are different components in your day that I'm going to show how you can integrate your writing. Let's integrate writing in your core subjects. First, let's look at your language arts time. This language arts time, where I'm going to show you how you can integrate your writing, is during your focus story. And your focus story is either a short story or short informational text, or it could be a novel. It's any type of text that you are focusing on for about 7 to 10 days. Typically, 5 days are used for one story or informational piece. The problem with that is that we're rushing through those days and many times trying to teach the story instead of using the story as a tool to teach your standards. So I suggest that you have 7 to 10 days for this focus story. Let me show you how you can have 7 to 10 days for your focus story, but also realizing that that may not be enough text, at-grade level text that your students are utilizing throughout the year. The focus text will be used so that they can learn how to comprehend text as well as to connect writing to. But in addition to that, they need more text, at grade level text, that they are going to utilize in order to apply all these skills that you're teaching. That's why I like to have the read aloud. And when I say a read aloud, what I really mean by that is a cold read. And a cold read is a daily 15-minute time period that you will read to your students text so that they can take what they've learned in the focus text to apply to the cold read. So if you've been teaching a certain strategy, then you can have your students apply that strategy to the cold read. Remember, only 15 minutes, whether it's a novel, a short piece of text that you're using, whatever it may be, it is text that they have not had access to. It's the first time they've ever listened to it, so they can apply these strategies. Since you have 7 to 10 days that you're using a story in order to connect writing, teacher comprehension skills, and you'll see also so that we can address vocabulary, I have shown you the read aloud is important in order to have more cold text coming at the students so they can apply these learned skills. During these 7 to 10 days, I need to show you what activities we will use in order to teach writing in these core subjects. In language arts, during our focus text time, we will have our before reading, during reading, and after reading activities. Before reading activities is going to focus primarily on vocabulary as well as language development and narrative writing. The activity that I'm going to show you in this book that will address all three of those areas is going to be something called movie scripts. There are other activities I use to introduce the new vocabulary, but that's something that you'll have to go to my reading manual for. In this case, I'm just showing you components of writing that you would integrate into your day. This activity, movie scripts, what it will do is it will take vocabulary that you have taught for this current story and for previous stories. So students are constantly using this vocabulary and learning how to integrate it into their own writing. That's important. Why teach vocabulary just for the focus story and then it disappears? We want to teach vocabulary to mastery, how to use that mastered vocabulary in order to pull it into their own writing. So in my activity here, movie scripts, students will learn how to take their mastered vocabulary, how to integrate it into a movie script, which will actually end up becoming narrative writing, and it will become a language development activity because they will learn how to write and develop sophisticated sentences. And of course, it will be a vocabulary activity because they'll be using this week's vocabulary or past vocabulary to integrate into these new stories. In order to master vocabulary, what's very key is that we cannot just teach the words so that they understand them when they read them in the story. They also, for mastery, need to use those words in flowing text. They need to use it in their language, so flowing language, not in isolation, and in different contexts. So if I teach vocabulary and they only see it in the focus story of the week, that's where they understand that vocabulary word only in that context. But if you are using these vocabulary words in different contexts, then they become flexible with the word and they will master it. And then they will learn how to use that word in their writing in different pieces of writing that they will have throughout the year, as well as they'll come upon those words in other reading and identify it and understand what those words mean. So vocabulary mastery is for students not only to understand a word and use it in flowing language, whether they're speaking or writing, but also to use it in many different contexts. The bonus about this movie script activity is it is going to be what I call an introductory activity. And what that means is you will, for about the first 4 weeks of school, teach students this activity. And then it will become an independent assignment that you will give students every Monday. So now you have independent work. If you don't need independent work, this can become a homework assignment. So it's a beautiful activity for your students, not only to develop these skills and continue developing and practicing them throughout the year, but it also now will become a meaningful independent work activity or a homework activity, so your students will keep developing their narrative writing skills, their sentence skills, language skills, as well as vocabulary skills. During Reading Language Arts, we're not addressing that because this book is primarily for the writing. I just want to show you that once we have our before reading activities, then you would go to teaching children how to read the text using text structure and reading strategies. Now, if you want more information for that, then you'll need to use my reading book for 2nd and 3rd grade. The after reading activities. So after children have read this focus story, you will have many days because your before reading activities will take about 1 day. Your during reading activities will take anywhere between 2 to 3 days. For the after reading activities, you could have anywhere from 6 to 7 days to focus on writing connected to your language arts story. That's why I'm going to list out different activities that I will address in this book so that your students can connect their writing to their reading. First of all, after reading the story or the information, students will write a summary. Summary writing is critical for students because it will help with comprehension as well as improve their own writing. The second activity is called a Come Alive box. And a Come Alive box is actually an activity students will do So they will learn how to write better descriptions and introductions to their narratives. So that if they learn how to write a Come Alive box connected to language arts, when they're writing narratives, they'll have that skill down. Another activity that students will do is opinion writing. With opinion writing, whether it's a narrative or information, they will have an opinion about that topic or that story. So we'll connect opinion writing also to this story. Notice we're having our informative explanatory writing with summary writing, we're working on our narrative with the Come Alive as well as the movie script, and we're having opinion writing. The last thing I want to show you is your focus skill. Many times you will have a focus skill like compare, contrast, cause, effect, fact, and opinion. So you also want to have that connection to writing, which we'll address in this book as well. In language arts, we had before, during, and after because we had a specific text that we were utilizing. In science and social studies, on the other hand, we usually have a unit of study. So that means we're either going to be working on a unit in science or a unit in social studies. And in order to do that, you have to basically look at your students are either, as you begin a unit of study, in the unknown, and then as you progress through the units of study, they will be in the known. And what that mainly means is, as I work with students, let's say we're learning about plants, I have to ask myself, I'm looking at my science standards, do my students have background about plants? Do they have this information? Is this known, or are they in the unknown? And if they are in the unknown, then I have to give them the background for that. And we also have to go to text and read about the information as well. So what happens with your science and social studies time is we want to integrate in this time period writing. We want them to write information or opinions about this information that they've been learning. Well, the problem with that is it takes quite a while for them to know the information and master it enough so they can write about it, because you can't write information unless you know about it. So that's why I've developed different activities in which you can front load information, so you are the giver of the information. That's called lecture notes. And lecture notes is actually going to have two different parts that you are going to address when it comes to this activity. One, you are going to give them background, front load students so they have background in whatever you are studying in science and social studies, as well as teaching them how to write information. So lecture notes is actually going to end up becoming a background and writing activity. Your students now will not only have background, but they will produce pieces of writing after you finish with your lecture notes activity. One other additional activity are content diagrams. Content diagrams are used when we need to address topical vocabulary. And those are words that are specific to the content, like molecule, leaf, stem, photosynthesis. And what we'll do is not only will we front load that vocabulary, but we'll put it in a format so that it ends up becoming descriptive writing with those topical words embedded in the description. So for front loading information, we have lecture notes and content diagrams. Now your students will get background and they will end up learning how to write and have pieces of writing during your social studies or science time. In addition, when students are in the unknown, not only will we give background, but we will also be reading the textbook. When you read a textbook, what you'll end up doing is show children how to read a textbook, but then from there you'll take notes, and from the notes, you're going to write a summary of those notes. Now let's jump to the last box, and this is when students are in the known. Once we are in a unit of study, they know the information, they're mastering it and understand it, then you're actually going to take them through writing, and at this level, the students are going to brainstorm the information.